Well, hello and welcome to another video of this OMG fishing. Today I'm just going to try something completely different. Today it's not going to be a fly, it's not going to be a conversation about how to fish a pond or anything of that sort, or an unboxing. I'm going to paint a lure. I've always had this thing where if I didn't like how a lure looked, I always kind of tweaked with it. I have other older versions of lures that I've painted and fiddled around with, and I'm not overly experienced in the field of painting. But we're going to give this one a little bit of a whirl. So what I've done is I've bought a lure blank. It's kind of hard to see it here against my white shirt, but I purchased, you can buy these online, fully assembled, or they come apart. This one's kind of a reef runner style of a blank. And what I'm going to do today is let's see if we can turn it into something that looks respectful and we can fish with. What I have is I have an airbrush. It's not a very good one. This is just like a hobby shop one that I picked up. I have a compressor over here, and it's not, again, high end by any means. A couple $100 I think for the whole kit, which included the airbrush, the hose, and the compressor. And we'll see what we can do with it. That's the tool of choice. And let's see what all we have here. So I have the blank, which is good. I have the paints. So I have a whole series of paints. These happen to be golden paints. You can use whatever kind you want. It's an acrylic. It's a nice thin, really liquidy paint that comes out of the airbrush relatively easy, so you don't get a lot of sputtering and spattering or clogging and things like that. I've just kind of organized as much stuff as I can for what I'm trying to do. I've got some gloves here for when I need to start to hold the lure a little bit more after you get the first coat down. I don't want to touch it as much with my hands and get oil all over the paint spot. A little mask comes in handy in these COVID times where I can just wear it, keep the excess paint spray going up my nose. I also have stick-on eyes. You can get these from most fishing stores or again online. Sometimes when you buy these, it comes as a kit, and I'll show you what to do with those later. So first things first, I use, I think we call this frog tape or painter's tape, and you just want to cover up the bill part. You don't want to paint that. You want that to, well, I suppose you could paint it if you really wanted to, but that's not what my intention is here. So I'm just going to take that tape. It's fairly flexible, and I like it because it doesn't leave a lot of adhesive on. So the first part that I usually do, or that I do, as I've made one of these here, is to put your base coat down. And base coat, I typically will just use a white. Make sure your white is nice. You got to shake it up quite well. Put it into your airbrush. I'm just going to kind of skip past this one here because I've already gone ahead and made this. So you put the white on, and then you can take a heat gun or a simple hair dryer. Put the heat to this after you painted it, and that'll lock your paint down on your lure, and then you can start with your next color. And always check to make sure that your tape hasn't lifted anywhere and that you're not going to get spray underneath it. So the pattern that I'm trying to do here is this one, and I think it is called Electric Lemonade or something to that effect. The head is red, body is chartreuse, got some darker yellow across the top, and some pink flare across the bottom. pretty basic, pretty simple. That's you know, how I want to keep this. You know, this is my learning curve, so I want to not make things too complicated for myself, because if you get frustrated with what you're doing, you're really not going to enjoy the whole process. Okay, I'm going to turn on my compressor. Hopefully it's not too noisy. Shake up some paint. Clear off that piece. And we'll just put some paint in there. I've got a little trash can over here where I put my overspray, and when I do the overspray, I'll put this mask on so that I don't get a lot. So first thing, I've got a little clip block here that I can put my lure on, holds it in place. So you know, if you're like me, you got shaky hands half the time, and this way it just kind of holds that. I can still hold it myself, and it allows me just to kind of keep it in a better position for how I like to use it. What I do, I have the paper on my table here, and I'm just going to test and see. I'm going to get my paint, figure out what flow I'm comfortable with, and then I'm just going to come in here and just start to paint. Not in a hurry to do it. I'll get that back done nice. And I'm going to bring some down the side. Take a look at that. See how we're sitting. And then bring some down the side. Take a look at that. See if I'm okay with how that's sitting. Take it out. Then my clip. I'll look at that. There's my side. There's my other side. So this side has more of a line. I got a bit of overspray on it. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to add a little more paint onto this because I don't like how that's sitting there. Whoops. Get that clamped in there good. And I'm just going to come in and spit some paint out here. Okay. Like how that side's shaping up. Now we'll come in and do this side. I think one of the good things about this is it's just like painting with acrylic. You make a mistake, you just paint this thing over. You don't want to keep painting it over too many times. Like white, if there's a mistake on here, I could just white this right out and start over. But you don't want to do that too many times because there's textures on these baits, and you'll lose all that texture. As it thickens, it starts to fill in all of those lines. So now I've got my highlight color, which is chartreuse. Take a look, see if I like how that sits on there. I like that. Has some overspray coming down the side. It's not a rigid line, and the white belly. So we'll keep that white belly, and we'll move on to the next color, which is going to be the dark yellow band across the back, just to give it a bit of texture, and then we'll go on to painting the head part. Now I've already gone and pre-mixed a color here for that. I'm doing a little small batch of them here for a friend of mine actually. So I went ahead, I made the color, I tested it to see if it was a color that I liked, and it's come out exactly how I wanted it to. And so I'm just going to zap this with the hairdryer. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the next color of yellow. It helps if you have a couple of different bowls to put your paint into. I usually have a few more around, and so like I said, should probably put on my mask for this, but and how I tend to try and do this is I'll work in similar color schemes. So a yellow, I'm going to put my light yellow on first, then I'm going to put on a darker yellow, and then this way I don't have to clean out the airbrush as much. So when I switch to putting on the red, then I'll end up having to do a really thorough clean on it, and that'll ensure that the next color that comes out doesn't have the yellow in it and making it look off. So I think that's fairly clean. So I have some yellow, and I'm just putting on just a little splash of yellow, so there's not much there. That's why it's always good to plan ahead if you're going to do multiple lures, so that you're not wasting your paint. So now I'm going to come in with the darker yellow and just come right up the back of this lure. Nice and easy. You don't want to do a lot of spraying and a lot of air. The more air pressure you put on it, the more that it's going to spread on that lure. So we've got the darker yellow in the back. It's a little hard to see. Once you put the epoxy on it, I assure you it'll stand out quite a bit more. Alright, so now we're on to the head detail color. I'm just going to get some of the yellow to blow out here. So I'm pretty sure that there's a fair amount. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to start right at the very tip of this, if I have it here. And I'm going to just bring it across. There's a gill plate that's on this, and we just want to make sure that everything looks the way that it should. Again, this is it'd be handy if I used my gloves. But if I was doing a lot, I would tend to use my gloves a little bit more. So I'm not going to worry about it a whole lot. Make sure you just get a nice good coat on there. Come in underneath. And do the same there. So now I'm going to keep it in this wood block, and I'm just going to come in and start to do the tail really, really lightly. And a stripe down the middle. Okay. And that is the base coating for this lure. So we had 3 colors. I think I'm going to come in and just put a little bit more on the head here. Always take a look and see how it looks from all sides. I think that looks pretty darn good. So as I was saying, I've used white for the base, chartreuse for the highlight color, a darker yellow across the back, and blended red, fluorescent orange, and fluorescent pink makes up this head color. So this is pretty much how this lure goes. Now on these there are some fins that are formed in the mold and some gills, and you can dress those up if you want. For this lure, I think because the color is not really all that natural, I'm not going to bother with it. I'm just going to keep the texture on that, and we'll get a little bit on the nose here. Okay, then I'm going to lock that in. Okay, so there we have that lure painted, I'm just going to shift some of this stuff off to the side here, and we're just going to keep motoring along. So like I said, you can buy molded 3D eyes. Make sure you get the right size and the right color that you want. Sometimes these are a little tricky in that the backing doesn't always come off, so you end up having to try and peel those off. Sometimes it's more hassle than it's worth, so you can always find one here. I can get it off my finger. Now there's people that will put a dab of glue in there, which is fine. That'll work just as well. I'm going to be putting an epoxy over it, so I'm not going to bother. So I don't know if you can see that or not. There's the 3D eye in place on the one side. And then just repeat that on the other. These are adhesive on one side, generally. Make sure it sits in that spot properly. So, like I said, start out simple. Simple patterns. There's lots of references. You can go in your tackle box. If there's a favorite lure of yours that you want to use, you can get that out, place it off the side, use that as a reference, and just try and figure out how it was put together paint-wise, and experiment. You know, you could come up with something that's totally unique and has never been thought of and catches fish like crazy. You never know. So there's no bad paint. There's just ones that aren't as effective as others. So this is a pattern that a friend of mine uses on walleye and has a lot of success. So I'm actually making a batch for him, and we'll get on to the next step, which is I'm going to take this off and we're going to put an epoxy coat on it. Stay tuned. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is this will dry up in a couple of minutes. Just going to put it in there to hold it. And one of the things about having a glove and having it clean is when you put this stuff on, if it's not completely clean, or if you don't get a good enough layer to it, it separates a little bit. That's one of the pitfalls of using the fast curing epoxy for it. And what I like about this epoxy is that A, it does dry fast, and B, it doesn't change color a whole lot. Some of the epoxies that you get, they'll start to turn yellow after a while, but this one here has been pretty good for me. I've used it on a couple of older lures that I've had to recondition. I've used it on some flies. I've done a few other colors. I'll show you. Other than the electric lemonade one here, this isn't coated yet. I've done a few more. So what I'll do is I'll just put some of the other patterns up here, and I just took them from another lure or from just experience of what I like to see, and applied that to my lure, and hopefully this lure is going to catch me some fish. So I hope you enjoyed this. It was pretty brief, more fussing around than anything, but it's pretty simple. That is, again, sort of my philosophy of doing flies, and now with these lures, I'm not going to, I don't want to sit here and spend hours and doing something that nobody else can do. I just wanted something that's effective, something that's simple, something that everybody can work on and work towards, and I think that this pattern is one and these lures are something. It's a fairly inexpensive setup, and you can have a lot of fun with it. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, give me a thumbs up. That'd be great. A like is super. If you have any tips, that'd be absolutely amazing, because this is something that I'm looking at, just starting up. My daughter and I have been painting some of these lures. She's actually very good at it, and we just want to see where it goes. So if there's any tips, or if you want me to paint some lures or refurbish some of your lures, let me know. You can direct message me anytime. So like I said, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. And during these COVID times, it's a good little hobby to have. Keeps you out of trouble. Take care. Okay, so part of getting these lures and painting them is seeing if they actually work. So today I'm out at the pond, and I'm just going to experiment and see how they sit in the water. They're all painted up, hooked up, and I'll just see if they need to be tuned or if they're just complete and utter garbage. So we'll get that going. First off, I'm going to go with this one here, nice bright color. See how it goes. I don't know if you'll be able to see this in the water or not, but we'll try and get that so that's visible. So tie it on quick. And although these are typically classified as a crankbait, I tend to troll with mine. So we'll see just kind of what goes on. Okay, they're there. Nothing fancy. Let's go ahead and see. Floats. Digs. Well, it seems to run pretty true. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. So with this one, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so this is going to be the next model I'm going to test out. See how it goes. Hopefully we'll be able to see this in the water. Step up to the water. I'll move this bag out of the way. That's where I brought everything in. Let's see if we can. It's got a pretty nice action to it. This is sort of a mid-ranged depth lure. I'd say that other one ran probably 6 to 8. This one's probably about a 2 to 3. Okay, so this is the third one that I'm going to try out. This is more of the body style that I typically use for a crank and for trolling. So let's just see. This guy. He's a floater. Oh, a nice wobble action. Nice action to that one. I don't know if you can see that in there or not. Seems to track pretty true. Now this is the one that you saw me paint up. This is the Reef Runner style lure. Now I noticed that the lip sits a little askew on these ones on the batch that I have, so I'm just going to see how this goes. I think typically this isn't really a crankbait, this is more of a trolling bait. It's got some good action to it. Doesn't seem to veer off the path a whole lot if it indeed has that angle on it, so okay, Well, that concludes it. Hopefully there's some footage that we could see. There's the lure. I'm going to have to do a bit of editing on here. That's it in the water. Seems to track pretty good. Okay, excellent. Well, that concludes my little exploration. Thank you.